There are many things that we love about classic cars, but one of the key design elements that many of us miss, it's almost extinct on new cars, is hidden headlights. Hidden headlights today really aren't seen on many new cars, but back in the 1960s, 70s, and 80s in particular, hidden headlight front ends were relatively popular on new vehicles. Some cars, including the 1942 DeSoto shown here, even had hidden headlights before this. In this particular video, we're going to explore some of the best hidden headlights that were ever placed on classic vehicles. Now, to be nominated for this list, it's not cool enough for the car just to have awesome front-end styling when the hidden headlight doors are closed. There has to be something unique about the hidden headlight operation in order for the car to make the list. So, as you think about the vehicles on this list, think about it in that context. And if you have a vehicle that you feel that I've missed, please write in the comment section below what one of your favorite hidden headlight cars is and why. But for now, let's get started with the list. At number 10, we have the 1987 to 1989 Pontiac Sunbird. Pontiac introduced its version of the J car in 1982, along with those from Chevrolet, Oldsmobile, Buick, and Cadillac. But back then, the Pontiac version of the J car was known as the 2000, and by 1987, that had morphed into the Sunbird. And for 1987, the Sunbird went through a facelift and got this front end that you see here. Now, what's interesting about this particular facelift is that the Sunbird got pop-up headlights for the first time, and it's a super cool front end. I think designers were hoping to have the ability to have smaller headlights, but you can see there that there are sealed beam headlamps tucked away under those headlamp doors that interestingly don't close all the way. Instead, you can see part of the headlamp is still exposed down underneath the headlight door. When one switches on the headlights, the headlight doors pop open and expose the full sealed beam headlight. This was a strange approach that I don't think any domestic car has had either before or since, although some foreign cars like Alfa Romeos did have a similar type of hidden headlight door, although on the Alfas it was slotted. In any case, Pontiac introduced this, as I mentioned, for 1987 and would carry on that front end through 1989 on this generation of Sunbird. And if you're going to get a Sunbird, I have to say, you have to get a Turbo GT convertible. And while this one is cool that I'm showing, that Turbo GT convertible, as you see in the bottom right here, would be far cooler. Moving on to number 9, we have the 1981 Imperial. No, not the Chrysler Imperial, but just the Imperial. Imperial became its own standalone mark in 1955, and Chrysler would treat it that way through the 1975 model year. Imperial would then go away, basically replaced as the top-of-the-line Chrysler vehicle by the New Yorker Brougham, until 1981, when Chrysler reintroduced the Imperial. It would last through the 1983 model year and really would prove to be a sales flop, selling just about 10,000 units across those 3 years, but most of those, about 7,000 units, were sold in 1981 alone. So 1982 and 1983 were really sales disasters for Chrysler. A large reason behind this was that the Imperial used an electronic fuel injection system that was quite failure-prone at the time, and the car gained a reputation for having reliability issues. One of the cool elements, though, of the Imperial was its hidden headlights, because Chrysler specifically finished off the headlights behind the doors with a fine degree of care, and did so only for the early years of the 1981 Imperial body style. By 1983, Chrysler no longer finished the area behind the headlight doors in chrome, so if you want to get the best hidden headlight of all on the Imperial, you have to get one of the earlier model years. I think the car looks overall very tasteful with these hidden headlights, but having that special chrome touch behind the headlight doors places it at number 9 on this list. At number 8, we have one of the most stunningly beautiful cars that GM ever produced, and that's the 1966 to 67 Buick Riviera. The Buick Riviera was all new for the 1966 model year and got this handsome body style that followed the beautiful 1963 to 65 Riviera. And one of the key awesome elements of the 66 and 7 Riviera are the hidden headlights. There are a couple things that are unique about the hidden headlights on these Rivieras, and most notably, the first is that they look so well integrated when they're down, almost as though they belong on the car in a fixed position as opposed to being hidden. The grille of the Riviera with the headlights down looks honestly just as good as it does with it up, at least in my opinion, and that's a rare feat. Something that you, for instance, really never saw on Ford vehicles, where with the headlight doors open, the car just often looked funny. But here on the Riviera, the car looks beautiful with the headlights on or off, as you can see here. The other thing that was interesting about these is they had a cool mechanism where headlights rotated down by 90 degrees from being tucked under the top of the hood. It wasn't the door that really moved out of the way to expose the fixed headlights, but the headlights themselves rotated downward. It was a great, elegant execution and gave this 66 and 7 Riviera a beautiful front end. Number 7, we have the 1984 to 1996 Corvette, otherwise known as the C4. In 1984, the new Corvette came out and it replaced a Corvette that had been in production from 1968 to 1982. There was no 1983 Corvette, at least in publicly saleable form. However, for 1984, the Corvette got new sleek body lines, muted fender tops, as well as a muted hood bulge compared to the 1968 through 82 C3. And it was, at least in my mind, one of my favorite Corvettes from a design standpoint of all time. One of the cool things about the design on this Corvette was that obviously the hidden headlight theme continued from previous models, but the hidden headlight actuation was very different on the C4 versus prior models. More specifically, the hidden headlight doors on the Corvettes of this era rotate forward to expose the headlamps as opposed to popping up out of the hood. It allowed for the headlights to have a more sleek and aerodynamic shape than they otherwise would if they simply were based on raising the pop-up section of the hood cutouts. And it also provides an elegant solution. But it's pretty rare to find cars with hidden headlights that rotate forward into position. And this 1984 to 96 Corvette does it and does so very elegantly. At number 6, we have the 1967 to 1969 Chevrolet Camaro RS. The Chevrolet Camaro was introduced in 1967 was really General Motors' response to the extremely successful Ford Mustang. Given the success of the Mustang, GM didn't have much of a choice but to enter the pony car wars, and it did so with its Camaro as well as the Pontiac Firebird. However, the Camaro was the car that had hidden headlights, at least in the Rally Sport trim. And one of the things that makes it so cool is that these headlight doors don't rotate up or rotate down. They actually rotate inward toward the center of the grille as they open. Again, a very unique approach to hidden headlights as opposed to alternate ways that, as I mentioned, would just typically have the doors rotate up or down. And of course, the car has a particularly menacing look with these hidden headlights, as opposed to the non-Rally Sport Camaros that have exposed headlights. For the 1970 model year, the Camaro would go away from hidden headlights altogether in both the standard and Rally Sport trim, but it would be an extra handsome-looking car, leaving the 67 to 69 Camaros as some of the best-looking hidden headlight Camaros ever produced. Now let's go across the pond for number 5 to a brand that some Americans may be familiar with. That's Opel and the Opel GT. The Opel GT was Opel's sports car that was produced from 1968 to 1973. And for those who aren't familiar, Opel was a brand that General Motors owned based in Germany that did export cars around the world, including to the U.S. for a period of time where they were sold in Buick dealerships. The Opel GT is one of the most gorgeous Opels and General Motors cars, or some could even say cars ever produced, along with some of other classic Opels, including the Commodore B and Record D coupes that were done by Chuck Jordan. But the Opel GT is the only Opel that's great looking and has awesome hidden headlights. One cool element of the hidden headlights is, of course, their styling and how they're sleekly integrated into the body. But the other piece is that in order to activate them, they actually rotate and flop over sideways as opposed to popping up when you activate them. The The other piece that's interesting about them is that they're activated in an unconventional way. There's no button to push to trigger an electronic motor. No, this is manually operated hidden headlights. You pull a lever in the cabin, seen here on the center console on the driver's side, and by pulling it, that's what activates the headlights and causes them to flip over. Of course, this mechanism worked pretty well in the summertime, but if there were ice that had formed on the car or it were cold, it was a little bit hard to pull that lever and get your headlights to flop over. But no matter, they still looked cool. At number 4, we go back to the U.S. and talk about the 1968 to 1969 Oldsmobile Toronado. The Toronado was introduced in 1966, and for 1966 and 67, the Toronado also had hidden headlights. However, the 66 and 67 Tornado's hidden headlights were more of a classical execution, where the headlight doors just simply popped up and extended when one wanted to use the headlights. When Oldsmobile changed the styling theme of the Toronado for 1968 and carried it through for 1969, a different style of hidden headlights was present on the Toronado. More specifically, the headlights were hidden behind the grills on the Toronado. And when you turned on the headlights, it wasn't just a simple headlight door that moved. The entire grille actually moved up on either side of the twin port grille theme that Oldsmobile had employed for the 68 and 69 Toronado. I've never quite seen something similar to this where the entire grille moves out of the way, but such was the case on these Tornados, and I think it's frankly quite an elegant solution. Some don't care for the 68 to 69 styling, especially when compared to the 66 and 7, but I still think it looks overall pretty good. And by 1970, Oldsmobile had gone with exposed headlights on the Toronado, so the 70 Toronado certainly was not going to make this list. However, for 1968 and 1969, if you got a Toronado, you certainly got some cool hidden headlights that were activated by moving the grille out of the way so that they could illuminate the roadway. At number 3, we go down market in the General Motors lineup to the 1968 Chevrolet Caprice. The Caprice was introduced partway through the 1965 model year, principally as Chevrolet's response to the Ford LTD. Ford introduced the LTD for the 1965 model year, and this up-level Ford was such a runaway success that it caught Chevrolet by surprise, and of course, they couldn't be counted out of the party, so they decided to outfit an upscale interior to their Impala and call it the Caprice. By 1968, the Caprice had become a pretty resounding success, and Chevrolet gave the Caprice and Impala a new front end. One of the things that was really interesting about this model year was that a buyer could opt for optional hidden headlights. They were not standard, but you could pay extra for hidden headlights on your 1968 Caprice or Impala. And while that is cool in and of itself because it gave the car this menacing look up front, the other cool feature about these hidden headlights on the 68 Chevrolets is that they're actually a two-piece door, not a single-piece door. So when you turn the headlights on in these vehicles, the door pulls up into the hood area, but the bottom part of the door does so first. Then the little eyebrow above the door comes up next. So again, it's two pieces and not just one piece. So in addition to looking cool, it has a kind of neat activation in terms of its operation. And for that reason, it makes it to number 3 on this list. In the number 2 spot, we're going to go back across the pond again and talk about a very unconventional car for Porsche at the time of its introduction, and that is the Porsche 928. Before this time period, Porsche was producing mid-engine vehicles, and principally the 911 that had a flat 6-cylinder mounted in the rear of the vehicle. The 928 was Porsche's first volley into the V8 front-engine rear-drive class, and it was a success for Porsche. One of the cool features about the 928 is I guess you can call them hidden headlights. They're somewhat hidden from view when they're retracted, although they are visible if you're looking at the car from a bird's eye view. But when you turn the headlights on, the headlights kind of pop up and make the car look like a frog. It's kind of a very strange overall design theme that I've never seen on another car. And that's, again, these headlights that retract down but are still somewhat exposed. And then when you activate them, they rotate forward. Super cool theme, and the overall design of the Porsche 928, I think, is just one of those timeless designs of all time. Interestingly, there were some strange inspirations for the Porsche 928. The chief designer for the vehicle was somebody by the name of Anton Lepine, and he admitted in a number of interviews that an American car inspired at least portions of the 928's design. Can you guess what it is? If you said the homely AMC Pacer, you would be correct. Take a look at the 928 next to the Pacer, and you'll see what I mean. And this leaves us with the last entry in this top 10 list, the best hidden headlights on any car. I'm sure this is going to prove to be controversial, but I'm going to say that the award goes to the 1965 Buick Riviera. The Riviera was introduced in 1963 and was actually not intended to be a Buick at all, but really a Cadillac originally. A LaSalle even was the name that was batted around for it. But when Cadillac rejected it, Buick was smart enough to pick up the vehicle, and it was a good success story for Buick and really helped them enter and in some ways create the personal luxury coupe class. The 1963 and 64 Rivieras had exposed headlights, and the front ends of those vehicles are rather attractive. But it's the 65 Riviera that collectors really pine for, and that's because of the clean, uncluttered front end, devoid of the exposed headlights. And I have to say that not only is this a stunningly gorgeous car, it also has a beautiful hidden headlight execution by placing the hidden headlights inside of the side areas of the fenders and these clamshell-like openings that when you turn on the headlights, they open up to expose them. I think it's just an absolutely stunning design, brilliant in execution, and really that combination of style and execution of the hidden headlights of the 1965 Riviera, I don't think could be matched by any other car. If you've got an idea for a car that does it better than the 65 Riviera, please put it in the comment section. But the 65 Riviera, in addition to having cool headlights, was just a darn cool car. Inside, outside, and everything in between. Great car mechanically with its nailhead V8 underhood. You just can't go wrong if you buy one of these 63 to 65 Rivieras. And for that reason, it makes it to the number one item on this top 10 list. Hope you enjoyed this top 10 list of best hidden headlights. If you did, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and check out the video thumbnails at bottom left and right for some suggestions for you.